Our industry over the past several years has done a lot of things to try to lower impacts that we have in our industry. We've also rallied together around an industry standard to help guide companies about the best practices for manufacturing natural stone. Social responsibility is a big thing that we've been trying to tackle the last few years as well, making sure that you've got ethical sources for your natural stone materials. So over the next hour, maybe a little less, depending on how many questions you guys have, we're going to elaborate on all these things. But before we get started, I know who these people in the front here are, but what organization are you with, please?
With Marfa, Mexico, stone manufacturer.
Stone manufacturer, okay, great, thank you. And how about over here?
Yeah, with MS International.
Okay, both of you are with MS International. Okay, awesome, distributors of natural stone and other products. So my name is Sarah Gregg. I have been in the natural stone industry for over 20 years, but specifically with the Natural Stone Institute just for 3 years. About 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to sign on full-time. They were a client of mine previously. I had been freelancing for different companies and associations, all with the natural stone industry for several years prior to that. But I signed on with the Natural Stone Institute full-time so that I could really focus on sustainability. That's really always been a passion of mine, and this was the place that I needed to be in order to do the research, develop the resources, and provide the education that was needed in the industry for this. I am joined today by Catherine Teal. I'll let her introduce herself.
Right. Thanks, Sarah. My name is Catherine Teal. I'm with Continental Cut Stone, and thank you for coming out so early this morning. I know it was a busy night last night, and yesterday was crazy downstairs, so thanks so much. And thanks, Sarah, and the Natural Stone Institute. Honored to talk about my favorite thing, which is sustainability. Continental Cut Stone is a fabricator, but we also have 2 limestone quarries, and the sustainability certification is something that we just jumped on, and I'm excited to talk to you about it, and I know it's going to catch fire, so thank you.
I think that by the end of our session, we'll have at least double what we have here. People are just waking up, having their coffee right now. They're making their way over. So we've broken everything down into 5 modules. We rearranged a couple of things today, or maybe 6. We're going to talk about the inherent attributes of natural stone that make it an easy solution for green building goals. We're going to talk about embodied carbon, where natural stone fits in and how we compare to some of the other building materials. We're going to talk about best practices in the stone industry. This is sort of an overview of our sustainability standard. What are the hot spots for natural stone industry, and what are responsible companies doing to lower the impacts? Also, what are some tips and tricks for the design phase of a project to help reduce impacts, choosing fabrication options that are more sustainable, require less energy to produce. And then we'll also talk about some credits that can be achieved within various green building schemes of using natural stone. So now I will officially pass it over to Catherine to talk about the attributes of natural stone.
So with attributes, I'm going to talk about the attributes, but a lot of this information is something that you guys probably already know about natural stone. But it's important to bring it up because it's a reminder that these are the things that are most accepted with the design community and also with the different green build programs. So first of all, natural stone is in situ, and all that means is that it is taken in place and not damaged. A lot of times that will bring in an innate human connection. We have pursued and now have an HPD, which is the Health Product Declaration. So keep that in mind when you're talking to your customers or in your design community. It's also a single ingredient, and that's pretty obvious when it's a single ingredient, but what that means for your design community is that you don't have to manufacture it. So when you go into a manufacturing facility in stone, that stone has already been manufactured, so that single ingredient makes a difference when you're talking about stone, especially when you're comparing it to other man-made materials. There are 0 VOCs, which is volatile organic compounds. So there's absolutely no need to test these, and these are being tested for other man-made materials, but keep that in mind. The thing with the volatile organic compounds, that stone is what they're looking at, not the sealers and not the adhesives. So make sure you go to your manufacturer rep or someone who is looking to give you that information. The stone itself is not going to have it. It's durable. So we've had so many examples of how durable it is. A few of them start with the Stonehenge, which is 3100 BC, and then you have pyramids of Giza, St. Peter's Basilica. If you want to go into the United States, you're looking at the White House in 1792, U.S. Capitol 1793, and we can go on and on the durability. So it is also recyclable. So there is absolutely no need for a landfill when it comes to natural stone. There's so many take-back programs that you can have. It can be crushed and moved into like an aggregate for roads, reclamation stone coming in from a building that has been not destroyed, but they're looking to restore something. They'll bring in a lot of the materials, and one of the examples Dan Wood brought back from Turkey, and Turkey's very well known for doing this, are the columns that you see in these buildings. If you'll look at the Capitol, each one of those each one of those capitals is a little bit different. So it's probably come from all different parts of the country, or a lot of the buildings in that area. It's low embodied carbon. Again, your manufacturing is Mother Nature. So when you come and you look at the energy, it's very low. And I'm going to have pass this back to Sarah so she can go into this a little bit. But specifically, there are calculators that are used. Sometimes you have to double check and look and make sure that they're apples to apples when it comes to looking at embodied carbon. And Sarah's going to speak to that. So here you go.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, we're really excited about the embodied carbon stuff because we've been trying to tell the story about natural stone being, environmentally friendly. Mother Nature does the manufacturing for many years, but we didn't have an EPD that quantified that number, and so people didn't believe us. So now we have the data to back it up. But before I get into the actual embodied carbon slides that I put together, I wanted to talk a little bit about this apples to apples thing. So I sat in on a webinar a couple of years ago, and they were comparing a bunch of different building materials, including natural stone, and they had natural stone very high. This was before we published our EPD. It was probably the turning point for me, realizing I've got to get our industry together to get an EPD because this is not fair what they're doing. But they had found an EPD published, I think it was in Europe, but it was for tile, a 3/8 inch thick polished tile with, the tile edge. There's quite a bit of fabrication required for a tile versus a cladding material, correct? Because the edges don't need to be as tight. The tolerances are a little looser, so there's less waste. It's just more efficient to create cladding material than it is to create floor tile. And what they had done was they took this tile thickness EPD and they multiplied it however many times they needed to multiply it to get to 4 inches thick. And so that made us look very high. And that's just one example. Different EPDs are done with different functional units. They're done with different scopes, the cradle to gate versus cradle to end of life, cradle to grave. So there's just so many factors, and I definitely knew that when I was going into this, but now that we've gotten our EPDs published and I've been trying to make comparisons to other building materials, I know it even more than I knew it before, how complicated these documents actually are, and kind of what you need to be looking for if you want to make comparisons. So for natural stone, in order to bring our building material to market, there's a very small set of steps. Okay? First, we quarry the stone from the ground. As Catherine talked about, it's harvested from its in situ position within the earth without altering the fabric of the material. We're not crushing it and gluing it back together, right? We're just taking it from the ground. We transport it to the producer, which most, not all, quarries are within miles of the factory that they're produced in, okay? So at that production facility, they cut them to size. Depending on the application, there are going to be different sizes, different thicknesses, different treatments of the surface and of the edging. For our industry-wide cladding EPD, we came up with a result of 21.4 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per meter squared. With flooring, it was at 22, and with countertops, this requires a third facility for the countertops because the producers create the slab material, which is about 2 centimeters or 3 centimeters thick, and then it goes to a third facility to be cut and customized into the countertop of any kitchen, right? So that one is a little bit higher at 46.8 kilograms. Now let's look at precast concrete cladding, okay? Similar to natural stone, they're mining materials from the ground. They are then transporting those minerals to the cement manufacturer. At the cement manufacturer, these minerals are heated and tumbled at very high temperatures until they turn into a powder. That's cement. They also need steel within precast concrete cladding panels. So they need to acquire that steel, they need to get it to the facility, they need to melt it into rods, so that it can be placed into these concrete panels. Those need to be transported to the facility also. There's also a second set of aggregates that are mined for concrete. So you have your cement that's already been mined and heated and turned into powder and transported, and then you've got your second set of aggregates that's mixed in later. There's also fly ash. There's a lot of that being talked about in the industry right now, some tactics to try to reduce the embodied carbon of concrete materials, which is great that they're doing that. Other additives, dyes and fibers sometimes being added. So everything is all transported to the precast concrete manufacturer. It's all mixed together, cured, and then it is ready for use. So a lot more steps. For cement, this calculation wasn't super easy to do for us because their EPD is done to a functional unit of a ton. So we needed to convert the ton into our functional unit, which was a square meter. So there's a little bit of math that was involved to come up with this number, but they were at 62.3 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent. Terrazzo, another material more suited for flooring applications. Raw materials, again, we all kind of start at the same place where we're mining raw materials from the ground. They need to then manufacture the binder. It's either cement or resin. So cement, I already talked about the process for creating the cement. For resin, there's different chemicals and ingredients that are combined together to create some chemical reactions that make it into this resin material. And then there's other additives, pigment sealers, other fibers to make that material more solid, more durable. All of them transported to the facility where they are combined and ready for pouring into either a mold or directly onto the surface of the flooring that they're going to live. For terrazzo, their number was at 72.2, or 73.2, sorry. The last one I have here is engineered quartz. So again, raw materials are mined from the ground. They are crushed and sorted into sizes and taken, I'm going to wait to talk about the transportation of that one. The next is the polyester resin. You can read that, but there's a bunch of different ingredients that they put together. to create some chemical reactions that make this resin what it is, right? This in liquid form turns into very solid form. So all of these ingredients are transported to the manufacturing plant. They're combined, they're heated, they're shuffled. They're basically creating a chemical reaction in a metamorphic process similar to what Mother Nature does to create our marbles and our granites, heat and pressure to create this durable solid building material. So a lot of steps here. I averaged 3 individual manufacturer EPDs and found that 102.6 was a number I was comfortable presenting for engineered quartz. So back to natural stone. We're taking it from the ground. We're not crushing it, gluing it back together. We've got a single product that we're transporting, fabricating it, putting it onto a building. So you can see why our numbers are lower than some of these other building materials. And this is just it in a chart. And if anybody's curious about how I came up with those numbers, come and see me afterwards because I'd be happy to show you those. But I've got a list of which EPDs I used and the math that it took to get me there. But I won't bore all of you with that. But if you're curious, I would be very happy to share that. But what you can see here, I'm sure it's not easy to see. It's pretty small. But natural stone, being the blue one, is lower in the cladding category than precast concrete. In the flooring category, much lower than terrazzo. In the countertop category, lower than engineered quartz. So what is embodied carbon? Does anybody really know? Well, I think this slide to me is probably the easiest way I've ever seen it presented. If you had your average car and you drove it 6,000 miles, that's about a ton of embodied carbon. Ton of carbon dioxide equivalent, okay?
Airlines, when they are saying how much of embodied carbon is being used while flying us from one point to the other.
Ooh, yeah, I don't even,
They do that.
it's gotta be big. So also 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent, if you put it all together, pooled it together, it would fill a hot air balloon, okay? And if you wanted to offset this carbon, you would need to plant about 38 trees. It depends on the variety of tree that you're planting, how big it's going to grow, how long it's going to live, but somewhere between 31 and 46 trees to offset that ton. So just kind of visual way to understand what embodied carbon is, how much a ton of it is. And the numbers that I showed previously were kilograms, but now we're going to talk a little bit about tons of carbon. So if you were to have a hotel project, 300 guest rooms that need vanities, and you were going to use natural stone, the total impacts, carbon impacts for that material would be about 27,000. If you used engineered quartz, about 60,000. So if you subtract that, you can see that if you just swap out your engineered quartz vanity tops in a hotel with natural stone, you can save 32.6 tons of carbon. That is almost 200,000 miles driven in a car, 32 hot air balloons, or 1,255 trees planted to offset. If we look at flooring, this is a museum project. It's got 1,300 meters or square meters of flooring material. If we were to use natural stone, we've got 28,000. Terrazzo's at 95,000. So if we're using natural stone instead of terrazzo, we're saving 66 metric tons. That's about 400,000 miles driven in a car, 66 hot air balloons, or 2,560 trees. And the last example is cladding. This is an aquatic center. There's 241 square meters of cladding. If we use natural stone, we've got 5,000. If we use precast concrete, we've got 17,000. And so we're saving 12.5 metric tons, 75,000 miles, 12 hot air balloons, and 481 trees. It sounds a little bit like that Christmas song, 5 loaves of bread. Okay. I'm going to pass it on back to Catherine now, but if anybody has any questions about these embodied carbon comparisons, I'd be very happy to talk to you about it after the session.
Thanks, Sarah. Wow. I love the hot air balloon. That's great. So best practices. So specifically what we're looking at when it comes to sustainability and the certification are the best practices that each facility or quarry uses. So we're going to start out with the certified stone. We have a Natural Stone Institute has a natural stone sustainability standard. It clearly defines best practices, and there's several metrics that we're going to go through. Each quarrier and fabricator can apply and also achieve their sustainable standard. When it comes to chain of custody, the quarrier and the fabricator both need to be certified in order for your stone to be certified. So I just want to make that clear up front. Let's start with water, because that's the biggest one. Water use is the first metric, and a lot of the ways that the certification looks at the water is how it's used. So how it's used in a quarry and also in a fabrication mill is to keep the dust down and make the environment safe for the employees. Most of the production, the facilities themselves have settling pools. And so when the water is used for the fabrication, the settling pools, there's 3 of them usually, and there's a settling pool that the water goes through and the sludge is captured at that point. I know personally ours uses a limestone. We produce limestone, so about 1 gallon of water is used 30, 60, sometimes 90 times before it's released back. The settling pond also, once it is released back, the water is released, that it is pure and safe to go back into the system. There's several different metrics in order for you to apply for the sustainability certification, and one of them, in order to get it, is the water reduction plan that needs to be in place in order for you. These are all required for recycled water and also an enhanced water treatment. For optional points, the recycling and reuse percentages need to increase a little bit each year, and then that's what helps you move into the next stage. Custody and transportation. So one of the things that I loved about the slides earlier are all the little trucks that it took in order to do man-made products. So yeah, sure, we all start in the same place, but the transportation, it could be from all over the place to get the other ingredients that go into man-made materials. Here, we pay particular attention to regionalized natural stone. And by regionalized, I mean just staying close to the area. But data is really important with the sustainability certification. And so what we try to do is monitor and keep the chain of custody information together, as well as the location and how much it takes to move that product over. And yes, stone is very heavy, so it's going to have some transportation, but really it's gate to gate. It's not all over the country. And there are lower costs to consider at that point. Site management. So site management in the quarry specifically is going to be more about having a plan, making sure that your workers are safe, and having them clear signage for, don't step here, don't, that sort of thing, but also working with the ecosystems around in that area. Just being cognizant of the past quarries, the present quarries, and the future quarries, and having a plan for each one of them as they go through. Optional points are working with the ecosystem boundaries, environmental impact that you have, and then verification that there is a site plan once you have that. Land reclamation, adaptive use, there are so many, but in order to have this certification, again, you have to have a plan in mind for that end of life for the quarry. The many of the quarries that I've seen, and you've probably seen also, can be anything from adventure parks to golf courses. So once you also have a plan in place to take care of the machinery, make sure that the ground is good and can be reused and adapted to something else. But all those types of things need to be put in place. Additional points is getting the community involved with that particular location to see if they have ideas, and then the site closure itself. Corporate governance, it really covers a lot of things. So you have social responsibility, but you also have making sure your workers are trained and that they are knowledgeable about the quarry and the operation itself. But also, the social responsibility is not to have forced labor, really prohibitions on child labor. And by the way, all this is third-party verified. They come out and look at your quarry, they check your water, they look at your transportation, what do you do with the chemicals, things like that. So the prevention of discrimination, employee participation, and also social accountability. Energy is really important because, again, this is all data-driven information. They come in and they review, a couple of years' worth of data to give you a benchmark specific to the energy that you're using for that. But if you're looking at a comparison of other products, because Mother Nature is manufacturing this, there's not a lot of energy that goes into this. I can speak. Most quarries are going to be way outside of the, let's call it the city. So there's not a lot of power sources to go into that. So you're very cognizant of what is being produced in that energy. So
especially in West Texas.
Especially in West Texas, because there's not even a city in West Texas. If you know where Texas is. So, but we're also looking at making sure that the energy that's used in each of the machineries, meaning gas and things like that, are monitored, but also we're always looking to do better ways. Are there better ways? Yes. And so one of the things that we try to do with energy is to keep it innovative and try to come up with other ways to do it. Excess processed materials. So there is some waste, by the way. I would say about, with our fabrication example, is about 25 to 35% of the product that we produced is actually makes it to the architectural element that we're creating. So about 65 to 60% of the stone is waste. But what do you do with that material? Some of the things that, again, are aggregates, but there's a lot of companies out there that will take, example with lime, is also you can put lime dust into agriculture, and then also egg farms, chicken farms that produce eggs will use it. And so just thinking of those excess material ways, aggregates for roads and that sort of thing. So there is a management program that you can put into place. Optional points are going to be a demonstrated process of reduction of the excess ways. And this kind of leads back into the end of the life of the quarry too. So solid waste is, there's very little stone in production that goes into a landfill. Materials, solid waste that goes actually get back into the earth. So many of the materials that we have has, in order to reclaim the property, is we move the stone back into it and then set it at a certain grade so that the prairie land comes back. Let's see, red list chemicals. So a lot of this is manufactured, but we just don't have a lot of red list chemical. But once you do, they are monitored and make sure that you have plans to get rid of the chemicals in that area. Health and safety is another element that the standard addresses. It's actually one of the biggest areas that they will monitor the data. So not all the natural stone contains silica, but some of them do. And so we have silica plans in place and also regulations around silica. And if you're not familiar with silica, it's usually a sandstone or something along that lines that has silica in it. So there is a plan in place for that. Also to keep the dust down in the fabrication mill and in the quarry. There are certain practices that each one of them have. And there's an accreditation program for the fabricators that do that. There's air emissions inventory. There's all sorts of third-party verified processes that NSF has. They're the third party. And so we're always trying to improve, right? So if there's an improvement program that you have, then that's all the better. The additional points. Speaking to that, innovation is very important. Energy, I was going to start talking about that with energy, windmills, solar panels, things like that are innovative ways. I know in West Texas it's windy all the time. So if they use the windmills that way, they'll be great. And also probably innovative, because I don't know that are there very many quarries that have turbines? I don't think there are any. So anyway, that would be considered innovative.
Yeah, the site of a quarry, which you kind of alluded to this before, they're outside of the town. The land is what they call disturbed, right? We're using it in some way. It's not just natural land. And so they're really good spots for wind turbines and solar panel farms. Mm-hmm. And there's quite a few natural stone companies that I've heard that are looking into it, or if not already using some alternative energy sources. Mm-hmm.
So back to the certified stone, what we're looking to is to educate, but really it's all about telling the story of natural stone. That's what this sustainability certification does, because that story's always been there. We just documented it. We just have a third party come in and document what we're already doing. Many of the fabricators and also quarriers out there are already doing this, doing all the things that I just mentioned earlier. So keep that in mind. Again, the sustainable certification comes when the quarrier is certified and also the fabricator, so that it has a chain of custody. So with the design phase, we'll move into different ways that a designer or looking at optimizing that product when it comes out. So as a fabricator, we're always looking at the size of the block. So in our case, it's 4 to 7 feet in width, and sometimes up to 9 feet in length. And when you optimize that, it'll have different dimensions. For example, stone cladding. So stone cladding, if you do 2 4s, 2 foot or 4 foot or 6 foot, you won't be wasting as much stone as you would if you did a 3 foot. And I'll demonstrate that. So that's how you optimize that panel, by when you're designing, stay in those parameters. Another design phase is the thinner, the better. So we were in I guess it was one of the workshops yesterday, and they've actually come out with a 1.2 centimeter process that will make it about a half an inch. I asked them what the backing would be to strengthen it, but it's on its way. But the thinner the better. I know, for example, architectural elements in limestone, it does need to be a little bit thicker. So you want to produce certain things in a stronger stone in order to make it thinner. I don't know, I want a show of hands here. So with the design phase on, this is one product. So with each one of these, the first one, if you'll notice the cutout, so we're looking at the way that the L shape on the cutout. So you have one way of doing it, which has a cutout where they literally cut the stone out. And then the second way is to have it look like it's a corner, but have two pieces cut rather than one solid piece. And then the third way is to not cut it out at all and just allow for the installation to have the thicker piece. So, show of hands, number one, is that the less expensive and also economical way to go? Raise a hand. Or is it number two? With the number two, I have several number twos, and then number three. So if you were to put this in line, it would be number two would be the best way. Number three would be the second best way, and number one to be the worst way to do it, or the most expensive, most wasteful way of having it produced. So also in the design phase, when you're talking to your customers, I know people are getting more used to the variations. This is a natural product. You'll have veining, you'll have color, is to really embrace that, and then also talk to its natural attributes. Because it's beautiful stone, and that's what makes it beautiful. If you want it flat, and concrete's good. But you have when you're talking to them, is have that whole conversation around. It varies. These details can also affect all your lead times. It can affect the price. Going back to the previous slide with the L, cutting it out, or the two pieces, those definitely can affect your lead time and the cost. The best way to walk through that is to talk to your stone producer or someone who is knowledgeable in that area. So with that, we'll talk about some of the green building programs and how the certification walks with those programs.
All right, thank you. Mm-hmm. So just kind of recap of the design phase part that Catherine just talked about. In most conversations, in most instances, sustainability can be replaced with the word efficiency. So if we can produce it and we can source it more efficiently, that is generally the more sustainable, better choice for the environment. So they work both ways. And that also, as she mentioned, lowers the cost, lowers the lead times. So sustainability in the stone industry, and I believe it's probably this way with all building materials, is really the most economical and just best way responsibly in a lot of different aspects, not just with the environment, but with your bottom line as well. So, oh goodness gracious, green building programs change by the day. It's really hard to keep up with the credits. LEED's in the process right now of trying to develop their version 5.0, and so things are going to be changing again, just when I thought I had a handle on which credits you could get with stone. But I tried to categorize them because in each green building scheme there's essentially the same types of credits. The first one is transparency documentation. So within natural stone industry, we have a set of industry-wide EPDs, and we also have a set of industry-wide HPDs. And you can use those to check boxes within the various green building schemes just an example, LEED has a credit for environmental product declarations. They have another credit for material ingredients, which rewards products that have the health product declarations or other material ingredient reporting, such as the Declare label. They also have, I believe it's a pilot credit right now, procurement of low carbon construction materials. So now that we have our EPDs published, you can use those data points to compare to other building materials and say, okay, I selected this material to produce a lower carbon building. And I showed you those, examples previously. Within the Living Building Challenge, under their materials pedal, they have an embodied carbon footprint imperative you can use this documentation for. And they also have a red list imperative. So with natural stone, there are no red list materials. The second set of credits that you can achieve with natural stone relate to health and wellness. LEED has a credit for low emitting materials. At the beginning of the session today, Catherine talked about how stone has no VOCs. So LEED has a credit, it's listed right within the language, low emitting, inherently non-emitting materials. Stone is one of those materials. There's no further documentation you need to provide, but if you want to, get an A+ instead of an A, you can submit those HPDs that we have that prove that. The Living Building Challenge also has a health and happiness pedal for healthy interior performance imperative. There's also biophilic design. Natural stone is a really great solution for biophilic design, creating the sense of nature in an interior space. LEED has a new credit, I think it's still in the pilot category, maybe not, for designing with nature. So stone is a good solution for that credit. And also the Living Building Challenge under their beauty pedal, beauty in biophilia. And one day, a couple of years ago, I took some time to read through a bunch of case studies on the Living Building Challenge website. And there's an awful lot of people, taking advantage of natural stone as a biophilic design element to receive these credits. So a very easy answer there. There's a lot of credits for responsible industry. Okay, this is the category that trips me up the most because I think we fit one place and then I realize maybe we fit in a different place. And I'm hoping, we've been talking with USGBC, I shouldn't say talking, we've been corresponding with the USGBC, trying to make sure that our sustainability standard is recognized somewhere because the companies that are certifying to that sustainability standard are really going above and beyond in the industry to make sure that they're doing the responsible things. And so we want to make sure that we're rewarding those companies. So there's a credit for certified multi-attribute products and materials. We almost fit there. The thing we didn't satisfy was part of it is that you have to have an EPD with it, which we do have an EPD, but the EPD isn't required within the sustainability standard, blah, blah, blah. That's a lot of information. It's very complex. Anyway, I have heard of at least one company that filed a credit interpretation through LEED and was able to achieve that credit by using material that was sourced from a certified quarry. There's also another credit for social equity in the supply chain. Again, we almost satisfy that with our sustainability standard, but there's one element that we don't, which we've submitted, some requests to them to reconsider that because it's just not possible for us to put that part into our standard. Anyway, again, if you file a credit interpretation, which your stone company will probably help you with, you should be able to achieve that credit. You just need to kind of explain why we don't have that one piece, which is the right to assemble. It's actually, we can't put it in there because otherwise it would provide a barrier for companies certifying. Depending on where they're located, they might not be able to put that in there. And then there's the building product disclosure and optimization. This is a 4.0 credit of sourcing of raw materials, raw material source and extraction reporting. We used to actually be listed right in there as natural stone. NSC was NSC. We took ownership of it in 2001, but it's the language changed. They took us out. I've heard that possibly in 5.0 it's going to be backlisted under that credit, but I'll keep you posted. Next time we run into each other, I'll let you know where we settled with that. or we'll put it on our website so you can refer to that for the most recent information. And then under the Living Building Challenge, they have a materials pedal, responsible industry imperative. Our Natural Stone Sustainability Standard is listed right in there. Okay, so that's an easy one there. There's also credits for material sourcing. So sourcing of raw materials reuse. Now, when stone is quarried and it has a vein running through it that's not usually there, the quarriers put this block over here. A lot of times it doesn't make it to the quarry because people don't want that because it has like a vein in it. And if you can file a credit interpretation, apply for this credit for using salvaged stone, we've had companies achieve that credit with natural stone. So it's material, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just aesthetically, it has something in it that is less desirable than the other blocks. So it's kind of an interesting way to use it, but there's a lot of examples that I can share with you about how you can design buildings and projects with natural stone and make just really great choices to help us utilize material that would otherwise, be waiting there, not going to a landfill. It's not hurting anything. Just kind of waits there for the eventual quarry reclamation process. There's also within the Living Building Challenge, materials imperative for living economy sourcing. So another kind of example there. And then the regional materials credit. This is another one that keeps changing. It's hard to keep up with. In 4.1, it's actually a multiplier of the HPD and EPD credits. So if you have those and it's within 150 miles, then you can get extra credit. But it used to be just within 500-mile radius, which was easier for stone. I mean, there are stone quarries in a lot of areas of the world, so you can very often identify a local stone quarry to use in your project. And then we've got one for performance as well, the heat island reduction. So if you have the SRI values, if it's below 0.33, then you can get this credit, which just means the stone is going to reflect more heat than it absorbs. And now on to sourcing. Where are we at with time? Okay, we are really good on time. Just a few slides left. So how to source natural stone from responsible companies. We have our Natural Stone Sustainability Standard. There's 24 quarries that have certified to this standard. There's 10 fabricator producers that have certified to this standard. From these quarries, there's 11 different granites, there's 19 limestones, 5 marbles, 5 quartzites, and there's more in progress. We have more companies in progress of certification right now than we've ever had at one time. So this is growing. We're seeing more companies certify. There is a few different levels, so depending on what credits they achieve, more or less credits, there's more or less things that they're doing to prove their responsible manufacturing processes. So if you go to naturalstoneinstitute.org/sustainability, you can see a list of these companies and also a list of the materials that come from these companies. Another thing that you can do if you're an architect, we have some new people in the room. Do we have any architects, designers in here? Okay, well your customers are architects and designers. You can write into your spec that the stone that you're using on the project must be from a certified quarry and must be fabricated from a certified fabricator. This is some language that you can use to pump into your spec if that's important to you, which I hope it is. Regional materials, we have our Natural Stone Institute membership directory, which you can go and you can select the type of company and even put in a location. It'll give you how many companies are located within that radius that you can source materials from. There's also the NBGQA website. This is National Building Granite Quarriers Association. They have a nice website that you can use to identify different granite materials that are from quarried in North America and find out the sourcing information for those. I have a really exciting thing to share with you now. We are about to launch a natural stone catalog. Okay, and I'm going to give you a preview of it. You can search by the material name, so you can type it in. It'll show you a list of the results. You can also browse by the application. So if it's available in a raw block format, if it's suitable for cladding, if it's suitable for countertops, you can choose the color and see the results based on color. You can also see results based on the stone type. So if you know you want granite or you know you want limestone, you can just select those options and it'll filter your results for you. It'll then show you the results, images of the material. You click one, we can also look at it on a map view. So if you're looking for something regional, you can choose the map view and see which materials are available locally. And then once you click in, you'll see a few different images of the material, also close-up images. If you click on each of these thumbnails, they expand into that bigger category. And then if you scroll down on that page, you can see any ASTM testing data that's been done for that stone. You can see where the quarry is located, also how to get in touch with a distributor, a local distributor for that material. So June 1st is our target date to launch this website. Right now it's going to be North America first. After North America, we'll be adding companies outside of North America into this, but that'll take us a little bit of time. But we're really, really excited about the possibilities of this website, just offering transparency into the market, connecting buyers with sellers. So really excited about what's going to happen there. So just to recap, natural stone has many inherent attributes that make it a great option for sustainability goals. Many of those are backed by actual data. All of this, which has been published within the last 6 months. So we're really moving in this space right now, and we hope to keep up that momentum and continue to grow and get better and get more documentation out there. Natural stone has low embodied carbon. Natural stone is a healthy material for interior spaces, and you've got a responsible industry that you're sourcing this material from, one that is guiding companies, helping to make things better for the industry. So, any questions? Yes?
So regarding waste at the factories, after the water is treated in the filter press, usually white lime sludge is produced. Is there any known use for the lime sludge?
Yeah, lots of toothpaste, beauty products.
So remember when I was calling it,
Agricultural.
when I said the egg farm, I meant chicken farm. Chicken farms use it. It enhances their feed, and from that, the eggs are a little stronger.
But it's still like a clay. It's not a dust.
Oh, it's not a dust. It's just.
Well, it's dehydrated, but it's still like a clay.
So because we deal with limestone, with our sludge, once it's aired out, it does dry into powder. I mean.
So it's left out to dry, and after it's dry, it's sent to the farms.
Yes, and there's also agricultural companies that will bag it and send it to garden things or landscape, and it works with the soil to give it acid, things like that. But there's a list of things and I hear you speaking to limestone. I'm sure aggregates for granite and things like that I've seen in jetties, near the ocean and things like that. Just takes a little research.
I think in general, there's really unlimited possibilities for the excess process materials that are, part of our production process. And it's not just the sludge, but, she mentioned, I actually had a booth across from these people at Greenbuild last year, so I watched their video over and over and over again. And I forget what the terminology is. You said jetties?
Jetties.
Okay. So they were selling these concrete blocks that were made specifically to prevent erosion of beaches.
The beach
like,
erosion.
gosh, that'd be a great use of excess process materials for stone. Like, you don't have to crush them up, glue them back together, cure it. You just take it from the quarry and dump it along the shoreline. It's very natural material. I think there's a lot of opportunities anyway for using our excess processed materials in a better way.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
I had a quick question. For homeowners that are interested in having natural stone that is sustainable put in their homes as countertops, how would they go about kind of maneuvering and finding what stones are sustainable in the market? Like, is there a directory? Are there stickers on the stone? Is there a way for them to know?
So the colors that are popular for countertops right now, there's not a lot of options that are certified to our sustainability standards specifically. Vermont quarries, so Danby Marble is one that is in the process right now. That's going to be a big one for that market. But we do have the website that has a list of the materials that are certified. We also have a list of companies who participated in the EPD project. So there's a few more options there that are showing, indicators that they're being responsible and doing the right things. Once we launch this website for the catalog, it'll be even easier. You can source, regionally would be a good option, but it's a space, the international market, the global quarries, it's something that we're working really hard on. It's one of our key initiatives this year is to get quarries in India, in Brazil, in Turkey, in Italy to either create region-specific EPDs or certified to the standard, to provide that transparency to the market so that homeowners can be sure that what they're selecting has been sourced responsibly. So we're working on more options. There's not a ton of them out there right now, but it'll grow. You're welcome.
How soon we are going to engage the overseas suppliers in terms of quarries or factories?
Well, we're doing it now. I'd love to talk to you guys about it. I know you've got some quarries in India, and we need more in India to certify because of some other factors. But we're talking to TAB. They're in the process of certifying their first factory right now. We've also talked to Gimco. I don't know if you have relationships with them, but yeah, we should talk because we're starting that process now. Probably the last 6 months or so, we've been trying to get some movement there. Any other questions?
For the imported materials, like you were saying, credits for sustainability and all. If you're using imported materials, then the carbon is a lot more. It's all coming from abroad. So, is there any disadvantage for the imported material here in US?
I would think so.
Yes, transportation is our biggest hotspot for natural stone. Stone's heavy. It's not that easy to move around. We've got limitations on load sizes on a truck. If we can reduce that transportation, then that's great. What we really want to prevent is stone being quarried in one country, shipped across the world for fabrication, shipped back to the original country, and then distributed worldwide. We don't want that to happen. So we're trying to do what we can to prevent that. But I think ultimately, if you're a homeowner and you're looking for countertops for your kitchen, you want to source stone, you want to know where it comes from, you want to know that the company that you're purchasing it from is being responsible with the environment. The sustainability standard is an opportunity to do that. Prove that you're doing the right things, document that chain of custody so that there's transparency about where it comes from and where it's traveled to get before it got to the home. So there's only great things that can happen from an international quarry within the North American market to be involved with these sustainability initiatives that we're building.
Okay.
Any final questions? All right. Well, thank you guys for being here today. It's a really exciting topic. I love to talk about it. So if you ever want to chat more, give me a call.